Canon, as defined by Webster's, as a decree, a law, a rule, or a criterion, a list of an author's works accepted as genuine, also a cathedral cleric. For the uses of this video, however, we will need to draw from several of these, but the last one is entirely superfluous. The only reason I even brought up the dictionary definition was that I believe it to be useful to frame some of the points in this video. The main reason I wanted to do this video was because of the upcoming Deadpool movie, in which Kevin Feige is intending to bring every iteration of Marvel into modern Disney Marvel as canon. Because what path is left to a talentless hack than to declare that there is no canon and everything is canon, because fuck your internal consistency and verisimilitude. Now, it is time to pry out my canon as a sandbox analogy. We have all played in a sandbox at some point as a tot. At least normal people did. From the comments section on some of my videos, I can only assume that some people lived their entire lives inside a bubble-wrapped, goose-down, padded room, and don't even know what sand is. But for those of us who have been kicked in the kidneys on occasion, you know there are certain rules to a sandbox that usually go something like this. Don't pitch the sand out of the sandbox, don't throw dirt and mud into the sandbox, and don't bring your cat to the sandbox. Lastly, cover the sandbox when you're done with it so that the neighbor's cat doesn't use it as a litter box. Now, with that out of the way, let us rock on down the list in the context of canon. Don't pitch the sand out of the sandbox is very simple and relatively self-explanatory. If you start throwing sand out willy-nilly, it has to be replaced, and that costs time, money, and effort. If you start throwing the source material of a setting out entirely, congratulations! You've destroyed the setting, and now everyone has to look elsewhere for their fun. This also applies to the laws of the setting. Numenorians look the way they do because of their background as the Faithful and the Elf Friends, who came from a group of clans who allied themselves and interbred with the Eldar. Space Marines are all males because men are naturally, as a general rule due to genetics, born with a higher capacity to be better soldiers than females. Throwing dirt into the sandbox is also relatively self-explanatory. It is adding unwarranted, unwanted material of any kind to the setting. A fine example of this is Far Country, a wretched little piece of heresy that added aliens to the world of Battletech. Now, why is this a bad thing? I hear the non-stompy robot fans in the audience ask. Because it contradicts one of the core themes of the Battletech universe, which is, of course, the theme of man against man, with all the Byzantine plots, apocalyptic wars, and human tragedy of the era of mech warriors. Violating that core theme removes and reshapes core thematic elements of the setting to be unrecognizable to Battletech. By the by, this novel was all but decanonized for the aforementioned reasons. Another example of adding unwarranted, unwanted material to the world is the Halo TV show adding humans to the Covenant. Now, this is but one of the many problems with that absolute flustercluck of a show, but it is a fine example of adding stupid changes to the lore of a world because reasons. The Covenant views humanity as evil because the prophets, in the lore, find out that humanity are the reclaimers of the mantle, which without going full lorebeard means that humanity are the Prophet's biggest threat. The Prophets thus declare to the rest of the Covenant that humanity must be eliminated for the crime of existence, and bing bang boom, human Covenant war. The Halo TV show adds humans to the Covenant, thus making the Covenant's attitude of genocide towards humanity completely nonsensical. All the aforementioned points involve the destruction of verisimilitude, the internal logic of the world. We are talking fiction here. The logic of the fictional world does not necessarily need to reflect the logic of the real world, but the world must be consistent with its rules, and if you violate those rules, the setting no longer holds up to scrutiny. Thus, your ability to buy the illusion the fiction is proffering forth is lost. The second to last point I would like to make in this video is, of course, don't bring your cat to the sandbox. IRL shit stays IRL. The cat will shit in the sandbox without exception. Leave it home. Warhammer should be representative of the 42nd millennium, not the 21st century. This goes for any other setting, be it Halo, Battletech, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek. The themes of these worlds do not require reinterpretation, nor should they represent the world we live in today. They are escapism from the world we live in today. You adding themes from current year and current year politics only removes verisimilitude. It destroys the illusion of the fictional world, because I am no longer being told a story. I am being given a sermon on the woes of this world. The last point of covering the sandbox when you are done is a reference to gatekeeping, which is a subject that requires its own video at a later date. So in closing, Canon keeps a franchise safe from the ravages of careless creatives, tourists, and political proselytizers alike. It keeps a fictional universe from being a confusing, contradictory conflagration of mostly peaceful protest proportions. And it gives fodder for countless YouTube channels, usually run by people with far more talent than me. But that's about all I've got for today, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Pete, the Radical Nerd, signing off.